Hello viewers, back again with this video that I've been hoping to make for a very long time. We're back in Microsoft Flight Simulator with JustFlight's BAE 146. This aircraft comes in the 1, 2, and 300 series of this aircraft, both passenger version and cargo variants. There's many liveries and all sorts of flavors and things of that nature. So we are also out to the north of Africa today at Hilo Echo Bravo Alpha, just around the city of Alexandria, and we're ultimately headed to Cairo International, also known as Hilo Echo Charlie Alpha. So today is going to be a fun, scenic flight. Hopefully we'll head out north over the coast there and take a hard right. We'll go up towards the Suez Canal, pass over that a little bit, and then ultimately wind up on final approach for Cairo International, and we'll call it a day at that point. This is a extremely complex, highly detailed aircraft at study level, in my opinion. So very authentic, and rather than worrying about too much on the checklist and getting into multiple hour videos in length, we'll just enjoy this for what it is and work through it as we get it as quickly and efficiently as possible. And if we miss steps along the way, we'll sort it as we go. That's what the warning Enunciator panel is like on the inside. So let's go ahead and get this show on the road and start the process of getting this aircraft up into the skies so that we can hear it and see it and enjoy it more so than where we are right now. Of course, the first thing we want to do with our aircraft is bring the batteries alive. And we're gonna go ahead and start the APU up. So to do that, I'm gonna go ahead and click the start button, of course. So we'll look for the TGT in hundreds of degrees Celsius for a hot start. We're also looking at the RPM rise, top center panel, obviously APU. So once that's up and alive, we'll go ahead and we'll bring our APU generator online. That way we'll be providing our self-sustained electricity and not draining the batteries. Of course, we're going to want the left inner pump on there, which is the fuel selector for, or rather the fuel selector rocker valve for the fuel cutoff and flow to the APU. So that is available now. Let's go ahead and activate the generator with that running. Let's go ahead and, since we're in northern Africa near Egypt and all the famous sphinxes and things of that nature, we'll turn on the air conditioning because it is hot. I would assume 17 degrees Celsius, which we'll use in our TMS later. As you'll see, we'll call that up. So now that we've got that flowing and we've got electricity, I'm going to go ahead and arm our emergency flight deck lights, and then I'll go ahead and arm our cabin emergency lights. I'm going to leave the no smoking and the seatbelt signs off because this is actually a cargo variant, so we're not going to have any of those today. I'll go ahead and activate the ice detection system, which is not actually having anti-ice on. It is just the detection of potential icing threats. So we'll go ahead and activate those other systems as well. And then I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to do a general flow of things with my eyes here. We're going to turn on the high initiate nav lights. We're going to turn the beacon on, signifying we will be starting our engines fairly shortly. I'm going to go ahead and bring our VHF nav radios to the on position. And while I'm at it, I'm up here, so I might as well turn on the radios as well. So they are right under the FMSs. And to get power to those, we're going to have to turn on the AP master, the avionics A and the avionics B master. While I'm up here, I'll go ahead and cut on the yaw damper masters 1 and 2. So now our VHF radios have come alive and our comms radios have come alive. I'll take the time to now turn on that yaw damper 1 and 2. Consequently, to the right, that is the actual enable disable button for AP, also known as the autopilot, of course. That is the actual button to do it. You may have seen up here briefly the AP for autopilot. That's just basically an illumination Enunciator light that lets us know if it's active or inactive. So let's go ahead and turn our transponder to transmit receive. We're squawking 7000 uniform. We'll turn on our ADF to ADF mode, as it were. Going to get back into the piloting command seat here, and let's go ahead and test these systems here. Oxygen. Alright. One thing I like about this aircraft, now that we're on this side of the flight deck, is you can use Navigraph if you have a subscription to pull up approach, place to airports, and ILSs and all that kind of stuff. If you have the subscription, it'll just pull up here. You don't have to go off site or out of the sim or alt tabbing out. You can just use it here. It loads right up with your account. That's awesome. It's also got an active map which loads up. That's pretty neat. I like that. And you can also use a simbrief.com accessory as well, which kind of couples with the Navigraph, and plan your flights on the simbrief.com. And as long as you log in here and you have a flight plan stored, you can use this FMS to instantaneously load up your previously planned flight plan from simbrief.com, which I find that to be the first in this sim that I've seen yet. There may be others that I'm not aware of, but I think that is super cool. I'm going to make sure that our FMS position reported is also the same as our entered position, which indeed it is. We are at, as I said, Hilo Echo Bravo Alpha, and we're going direct to Hilo Echo Charlie Alpha, Cairo International, and that is magenta, so we're going via direct, and it does appear to be active. That's fantastic. I had gone ahead, since this aircraft in the ATIS does not seem to have any ATIS callouts from ETARs. I looked it up online, and we're at approximately 1019 millibar, 1019. So we'll go ahead with that. And it was also telling me that the reference temperature for this airport at that time that I looked was 17 degrees Celsius, as it were. Welcome to the TMS, or Thrust Management System panel. This is a great automated aid to help you with the management of thrust settings on your 4 engines, so that we do not either overspeed them, overtemp them, or damage them in any way. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on, and we'll turn on TO for takeoff, which is telling us at 17 degrees that we have a maximum takeoff performance N% of 93%. I'm also going to take off at 18 degrees flaps today, and you'll notice, just like magic, it brings up those dials. Now, if we wanted to, in the real world, set this, we would have to, turn these knobs or whatever. We could do that to bring up 93%, and that just lets us see easier where we're going. So with that set, I'm going to go ahead and leave that there. Before we start the engines to get any major amounts of thrust propelling out of the back of this aircraft, of course, the yellow and the green systems, green not active at the moment, but we do have at least 2,500 PSI in our brake accumulators there. So we do have brakes, and we do have the parking brake on, so that should stay set while we start these engines. Let's go ahead and just hop on outside. Make sure there's no one around to get ingested into these little whisper engines, as they call this jet. Fascinating 4-engine aircraft with a lot of power to be able to get off of regional airspace runways relatively quickly and not make a lot of noise in the process, which is really neat. So we'll go ahead and commence to start these engines. The thing we need to do is turn on the right outer, the right inner, and the left outer, as the inner left is on. Those are our fuel pumps there, as it were, of course. We're also going to put our center tank transfer to auto. And then we're going to leave engine pumps 2 and 3 off for now. We're going to come over here and we're going to remove packs 1 and 2 off, APU air off. Let's go ahead and crank number 4 engine. So to do that, I'll turn this starter master switch here on. I'm going to leave the continuous ignition off, flight start mode on, and rotate. So now we're at engine Enunciator 4 and 1. Checklist calls for 10%. Introduce fuel. Watch for abnormalities, any TGT hot starts, any overspeeds. And we're going to make sure at the very, very top that we have good oil temperature in Celsius. And we're also making sure that we, of course, have a good oil quantity in the engine, and we're watching for oil PSI rise and make sure that our engine bearings are getting lubricated. Do not want to spin a bearing on a turbine engine. And now we can see why this is called the Whisper Jet. It's not much louder even with all 4 running. Fantastic. So let's go ahead and with our Enunciators off, we'll switch to engine 3. We'll hit the start button. I'm going to bring generator 4 online. And we just hit 10. Introduce the fire. And going back over it, oil PSI in the green, or at least rising, oil temperature in Celsius in the green. No hung, no hot start. And 1 steadily climbing, oil quantity full. That's another successful light off. Let's go ahead and swap on over to engine 2. Turn on the starter. There's 10+%. Introduce the liquid. Of course, at this time, if it has not already been done so, we can just look directly down below our gauges here for our engine, and we have a full left and full right tank, which is enough fuel today for us to get to where we're going and do some sightseeing. And number 2 is alive. Number 1, the final culprit. 10+%. Have a drink. Of course, one thing you always want to make note of when you're on the ground, this is the radar system. It would be wise and very courteous to people's longevity and health to not have that firing x-rays out of the radar dome, or radome as it were, because that is not good for human health. So, just a little bit there on not operating radar systems on the ground, or at least not till just before takeoff. So, with that activated, we're going to throw both of those generators on. I'm going to turn flight start off, move this back to the right, 2 clicks, off. We've got that there. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that our, there we go. Do not want any Enunciators lit up there for electricity problems and flow, so that's a good thing. Turn that off. I'm going to put the AC pump into auto. Plenty of hydraulic quantities, anti-skid and up. Not if we turn it on. Okay, great. So now we're looking down here at lift spoiler select off, and spoilers are up because they are not in the functioning position, most likely on these rocker panels. So yellow and green lift spoilers plus auto spoiler clears those messages right up. Now all we got is flight recorder off. That will turn on when we remove the parking brake, and it also says that our parking brake is on, but of course we know that because we're not rolling away as we're kind of dancing around the cockpit here, turning knobs and watching gauges and things of that nature. So what I'm going to do is tell the aircraft right now, just as standard here, I'm going to go ahead and flip this up to, well, about 8,000 feet so we can at least see what we're looking at when we're looking down over the landscape. And you'll notice the heading bug here is in the center, but it's also right underneath of our artificial horizon there. What I'm doing is setting that for runway heading, so in case if I decide that I do not want as much workload, I can go ahead and just hit heading select bug here on the autopilot, and it'll fly the runway heading while I clean the aircraft up. But we'll probably just manually fly this craft mostly today because that's the fun in it, at least as far as my opinion is concerned. Alright, we'll turn on our taxi lights. Now that we have 4 good running engines making electricity and horsepower, let's go ahead and turn our APU off. Don't need that no more. Remove APU generator rocker switch to neutral. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on engine bleed air 1, 2, 3, and 4. That air will supply the climate control and the pressurization. And that is also in the automatic position. So that is always a good thing. Do not want to get hypoxic at altitude. Now with our aircraft pretty much ready, we did not follow the checklist, but I'm satisfied with that flow for at least today's video. Let's go ahead and remove our parking brake, clear those last 2 Enunciator lights up on the warning panel there, and let's just ask for a departure to the north.
Org L Arab Ground, British Aerospace Golf, Zulu Alpha Papa Romeo, request taxi for takeoff departure to the north.
British Aerospace Golf, Zulu Alpha Papa Romeo taxi 2, and hold short of runway tree 2 left, via taxiway cross runway tree 2 left.
Okay, now that we're at the end of the runway here, after that mostly boring taxi tidbit of information, I'm going to go ahead and activate our 18 degrees of flaps. Let's taxi out to the runway 3 2 left threshold. And we'll make sure that we come over here briefly and reactivate our takeoff button there for our TMS. Once we're lined up, we'll demonstrate that system and how unique it is. As I said, it's a system that's meant to augment and assist the pilot and co-pilot so that they do not damage the engines with any overspeeds or overtemps. So I'm going to go ahead and, for the sake of this video and demonstration, just run these engines up very slowly. You'll notice on the TMS to the right that they have the blue little delta signs there. So we'll go ahead and provide that delta change, and then when we get in range of these actuators, you'll see those go away in blue, and then the engines will automatically pick up to 93%. And then we can set it and forget it, and that'll be our takeoff power. So this is an exaggerated engine acceleration, just to prove the point. And there they are, blue is off, release the brakes, and we'll head straight down the center line while the engines maintain 93% N1. Now we already set our rotational speeds, so it's just at about 133 with 18 degrees. Pull a little back for some back pressure. Passing through 130 and rotate. Positive right, throw in a little bit of pitch to neutralize hands-off flight with the yoke, and gear up. I want to try and stay below 10,000 feet today. So I'm also going to stay below 250 knots indicated airspeed. And I'm going to pull up a notch of flaps. Now this is takeoff power. Typically that is not sustainable for any extended duration. There is a threshold and a time limit that needs to be deactivated by. So for the moment I'm going to pull down throttle while we climb out. And I do have to say, for only spending a handful of minutes in this aircraft, as it just came out, for those of us who waited to purchase this on the in-game marketplace, it is a very nice airplane to fly. I like the weight and I like the cush feeling of the controls. It does not feel cheap in any way. The only thing I can relate it to is it feels complex, just as setting the aircraft itself is. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's certainly not a default aircraft that comes with the sim, that's for sure. So while that's happening, I'm going to slide on over here to the right, and we're going to do MCT, as long as my mouse will activate it. So MCT is maximum continuous thrust, and we are going to recognize that as 85.7. So let's go ahead and get up towards 85.7. Now I'm new to this aircraft, so I will tell you that if indeed I knew 100% what I was doing, those blue delta signs over the engines 1, 2, 3, and 4 would expire and the aircraft would fly at 85.7% N1. But for the sake of this video, we'll just keep on moving with the flow. Just know that it's more user error than anything else. The systems definitely do indeed work, for sure. We're on our way to 8,000 feet. While I'm doing that, manually flying still, just to enjoy this aircraft. I'm going to go ahead and turn our heading bug towards the closer towards the direction that we are traveling while we're on our way to 8,000. Because I would like to dabble with the autopilot a little bit. Alright, so let's go ahead and we'll activate. Let's see what happens if we do heading mode. And we'll try that again for heading mode. Fantastic. And I'm going to go ahead when we get to 7,500 feet or thereabouts and pull us out of this climb. And we'll put the altitude hold on. Okay. So that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and reach on down here with my eyes and pull off that maximum continuous thrust by just turning the auto throttle system off for now. Good time to pull the throttle back quite a bit because I do not want to try to go over 250 knots indicated. Right now we're just flying present altitude of about 7,500, 7,600 feet. And there we go, 2992 exactly. And we're also flying this heading. So I really like this visual map. It illustrates exactly where we're going today. We're going to fly across this crescent shape here just off of our nose. Once we get beyond that, we're just going to follow the coast a little bit more to the next large inland space of water right there in the center of the screen to the mouth of the Suez Canal. Then we're going to hang that right I was talking about, and we'll go down the Suez Canal and just check out what's happening today. Perfect time to turn off our taxi lights there. And it appears that we have no warnings at all at this time on the Enunciator display panel there. I'm going to pull a little bit back here. I'll go ahead and pull up the fuel page here to show you that we have 66% fuel here, all in our wings. And we do have 83% of our maximum payload. So what's interesting about that is you can see with 4 engines, this aircraft is currently cruising just a little above 250 knots indicated with a ground speed of almost 300. And we're at 64.7.5% of N1. So, barely even breaking a sweat with this aircraft today. Not even stretching our legs, as it were. And it is an awesome sounding, awesome flying airplane. That is for sure. Let's go ahead and hop on outside. Beautiful scenery. Let's change the heading bug and see how that reacts, shall we? Plenty to look at in this to keep you busy, that's for sure. The zoomed out field of view definitely puts that on display quite intricately. Couldn't ask for a better day to fly, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and switch on to the outside view. We'll get a little bit more in terms of the scenery on the outside. Take a glance at this aircraft's fabulous textures. Alright, welcome back. So I've descended a little bit and we're approaching the Suez Canal here. So let's go ahead and make that right hand turn with the heading bug here. And we'll roughly line up with the length of the Suez Canal here. And that straight and narrow in front of us is the Suez Canal, a major shipping lane. If you're watching the news, not too long ago in the history of the universe, that cargo ship got stuck in here because it ran up aground on the bank, one of the banks there, and it was blocking the major shipping arteries because this is a humongous pass-through port between the two giant bodies of ocean that these freighters use to intercontinentally cross the Atlantic and the other Pacific Ocean parts that they're traveling through. And a couple other things worth note too. I've gone ahead and switched over our HS1 here to RNAV. And that means that if we now click LNAV instead of heading mode, we are 78.7 and falling nautical miles to Cairo International, so we can follow that FMS plan basically right to the center of the airport. So we can use that as a guide for where we're at. And they've also gone ahead and programmed in the turbine gas temperature mode for 600 degrees Celsius. So the engine right now is basically managing around 600, give or take a few degrees Celsius on each. More or less that's what we're doing to keep our airspeed exactly where I've selected it, and it'll maintain that value by temperature. So we don't have to worry about finagling the throttles up and down, it will just follow that itself. Take a little bit of the workload on us. We are in general heading towards the Cairo International Airport on this heading. Of course, while basically following parallel to the Suez Canal here. And I hope you enjoyed some of those exterior views of this scenery, the sounds, and the aircraft. Of course, with 72 miles plus, you won't be sitting through this entire flight. Just looking out the front and side windows. I'll go ahead and grab a few external shots again. And welcome back with the super cut straight to the cockpit of the editing there. You're joining me in pilot and command as usual. We're at 16 miles on final, coming in to runway 23 center. We've got 1095 on our VHS nav radio. I've got a final course of 225 in the center. We're going to come down to 2,000 foot to intercept the glide slope, and I will go ahead and switch from RNAV over to nav. And we are currently approaching. I've already got the 29.92 on the barometer plugged in. It may change. If it does, we'll worry about that then. Landing lights are on. We're about to pull off at the 10-mile mark, the autopilot, and I'll bring this slowly down to 2,000 feet. And then we should hopefully be able to pull off a successful landing today. I'm going to go ahead and remove that now as I see the field in sight. And I'll just leave the ATC window up so that we can get the easier one to confirm that we've heard our ATC message. Go ahead and deploying some spoilers to pull our power back here. And I'll go ahead and turn TMS off. While I'm at it, I'll switch over to nav. And we'll fly that ILS beam all the way down to the center runway here.
2,500.
And just off our nose, a little further out, is where we're looking to go. So we're way left of the glide slope. And we're a little bit high according to our vertical path on the glide slope, but we're still within the beam.
British Aerospace Alpha Papa Romeo wind 265 at tree. Cleared to land runway 23 center.
And that's why I left the ATC window open now so we could go ahead and call that out and confirm it as quickly as possible. And we're just pulling a whole bunch of flaps right away here to create some drag. We'll go ahead and flip our gear lever down. And way high at the ILS vertical beam, but we are tracking closer towards the center. And that's looking more like a appropriate approach. And we're still a little high according to our glide slope and the artificial horizon there. We do have it tracked perfectly left and right though. Even though we can see it in VFR conditions, it's always nice to see the gauges working in real time. There we are. Left and right, centered up and captured. Glide slope almost directly centered on the upper artificial horizon.
500.
And it's seeming as though it wants to pull us
Glide slope.
quite long down the runway threshold, so I'm going to go ahead and just come in at a little bit quicker rate so that we don't eat up too much runway.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
And just like that, we're on the ground. just briefly testing out the thrust reversers there. So we're going to miss that taxiway, but we'll continue on to the next. Bring our landing lights off, go over to taxi lights, and we'll exit right.
British Aerospace Alpha Papa Romeo, turn next taxiway.
Alright, acknowledge that by turning off.
British Aerospace Alpha Papa Romeo, contact ground on 127.6.
Going to 127.6 British Aerospace Alpha Papa Romeo.
And for the sake of time, we're going to tune up to 127.6, but we're not going to actually ask for parking location. I'm just going to go ahead here and willy-nilly just pick something out of the blue. Save time on the video. Of course, welcome to Cairo International. Hopefully you enjoyed that mostly informal flight today. This aircraft is capable of a whole lot more than I'm capable of doing at the moment with my limited experience, but this was just a preliminary test for hopefully future adventures on the channel with this aircraft. And I am hoping to definitely work the beans out of this aircraft and learn more about it and its capabilities. And I believe there's systems in the FMS you can activate where you can get METARs ahead of time and ATIS before you actually even arrive. So there's all kinds of stuff you can do here that I believe. Of course, don't quote me on that, but as usual, we're all here for entertainment, and hopefully that's been provided today to some degree. Of course, there's the Concorde right there. And this taxi stairs here looks quite tall for something other than a BAE 146, but I'm going to park here anyway. Alright, so I'm going to throw on the parking brakes here and see what we can do about cleaning this aircraft up. Of course, that will require pulling the engines off. I'm going to go ahead and remove the flaps. Ideally, when you land on the ground, you would indeed turn the APU back on so as to cycle the electricity and the pneumatics to the air conditioning system, as well as the electrical buses and the power with all that. But to save some time and some effort, we're just going to go ahead and remove the throttles, and we're just going to go ahead and turn our batteries off just like that with everything in the on position. Not ideal, but we are here, and we did make it today. So hopefully you enjoyed this informal roundabout from Hilo Echo Bravo Alpha to Hilo Echo Charlie Alpha. Seeing a little bit of the sights and taking in a little bit of the sounds of the aircraft. As always, thanks for joining me on the channel here. And until the next video, have a great day. Bye-bye.